South Africa's economy is currently under pressure with numerous labour issues posing further risks to the struggling economy. Dawie Roodt, who is the Chief Executive of Efficient Group, joins us on the line now for more. Dawie, thank you so much for your time today. Just taking a look at some of the recent news announcements, we saw BMW losing a production contract to produce the latest BMW models in South Africa as well as export them out. Vodacom saying that they might look to divest within South Africa. It seems as though the continued labour unrest and struggles in South Africa may appear as though South Africa seems to be in trouble. Would you agree?
I'm afraid, yes, I am. I'm quite concerned about the image that South Africa has, not only from local investors but certainly from international investors. I do speak to international investors on a regular basis, and I can tell you, international investors are very concerned about what's going on in South Africa. Now, it is possible for economists to calculate the potential loss to the economy, but it is impossible for economists to calculate the future losses because of investors deciding not to invest in South Africa. I think also what we need to realize is that South Africa is competing with many other countries out there for a relatively small pool of international capital. If we make things difficult or if we do things that make South Africa less attractive as an investment destination, then there are many other countries out there that would really do whatever they can to get that capital to flow to South Africa. So without a doubt, I am very concerned.
Dawie, what about the unquantifiable losses there, an exchange of skills potentially from internationals coming into South Africa to teach us different things?
Yes. Well, first of all, let's see if we can calculate the calculable kind of losses. Economists will tell you that the loss, because in the motor industry, for instance, was a couple of billions of rands. But in fact, the losses in the motor industry, in fact, in all cases where there are strikes in South Africa or any country for that matter, it is impossible to make up those losses because yesterday is gone forever. And it's impossible to go back to yesterday. So we've lost that production and we have lost that forever. Then, of course, the other calculations on what we lose in terms of investments in South Africa, well, that is extremely difficult to put a number to that. But what I can tell you is that we probably are losing substantial billions of rands coming to South Africa and investments in South Africa. And, of course, we are losing the future production of those investments in South Africa. Also keep in mind that the international environment at the moment is not a very easy environment. The Americans are probably going to start so-called tapering, where they're going to reduce the amount of money that they're pumping into their economy. In a way, what is happening is that they will be tightening monetary policy. And then there's an economic incentive for international investors to probably take money out of emerging economies like South Africa. So this is a very difficult environment. And there's a good saying that if you're in a hole, it's a good idea to stop digging. We keep on digging, and that's really exacerbating a difficult situation.
Dawie, you've identified some of the problems there, but what are the solutions? What do we need to do right now to get us out of that hole?
I'm afraid the solutions are probably, first of all, political. I think something that is unsustainable in the current current political environment is that we have labor with government, in government, governing labor. And that is something that is just not sustainable. I don't think it is a sustainable political model to have organized labor in the form of COSATU in government. I think that if they really want to have a political party, let them go alone and have a political party. And as an economist, this is really important because what we have in South Africa, we've got economic uncertainty. We have political leaders that are quite afraid to make economic decisions. And part of the reason has to do with their political partners. So I would say that is the most important aspect that needs to be addressed. But of course, there are other issues like, for example, labor legislation, and we keep on beating on the same drum, but labor legislation is bad for job creation in South Africa. But the single most important thing is that we have to put measures in place to grow this economy. And because only a growing economy will address unemployment and poverty and the like. And I'm afraid we don't always make the right kind of decisions that make South Africa a winning economy like we certainly can be.
Dawie, just on that, are there any other international companies that we can learn certain lessons from who might come from a similar experience that we're currently in at the moment?
Other companies or countries?
Countries, excuse me, countries.
Well, certainly there are many countries where we can learn from. I think the countries that we can learn from are most definitely the Chinese, for example. Not only the Chinese, but many other BRICS countries as well. The Brazilians are getting in billions of dollars for investment. Even the Eastern Europeans are getting a lot of money for investment. A small country in Eastern Europe called Georgia is doing absolutely amazing. And they are not It's not rocket science. What they are doing are the basic things. Just do the normal stuff and do it right, and you will be amazed about the inflow of investments and, of course, the strong economic growth that you're going to experience because of that.
Dawie, just to touch on the numbers once more, you mentioned there that we might see some huge repercussions, in particular with regard to our GDP numbers. Just this week, we saw the Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan announcing that we won't reach our anticipated growth expectations. What could we see in the long term? What repercussions might the South African economy suffer?
Well, the South African population is growing at a rate of about 2.2 to 2.3% or so. So we want economic growth at an absolute minimum of at least the same as population growth. Now, my estimate for this year is an economic growth of about 1.9%. And if the strikes have the same impact on economic growth like what we've experienced last year, economic growth can be as low as 1.5% or even less than that. So clearly, economic growth is not nearly good enough just to keep us at one place, so to speak. Next year, depending, of course, what happens internationally, but I'm not too optimistic about next year either. I think we probably can see economic growth around about 2.5% or so, maybe a little bit higher if we are lucky. But the problem really is, until about 5 years ago, the economy seemed to have been in a 4, 5%, 6% perhaps economic growth trajectory. That has been reduced now to a 2, 3% economic growth trajectory, and that's just not good enough.
Mr. Dawie Roodt, always a pleasure speaking to you. That was Dawie Roodt, who is the Chief Executive of Efficient Group. Now, according to the Adcorp Employment Index, the economy has shed 74,500 jobs during the month of September alone. Lone Sharp, who's a labour economist at Adcorp, joins us now for a little bit more. Lone, just to get into the numbers, that's a huge number that we just read out there in the beginning. And naturally, there must be certain contributions to that, such as retrenchments, as well as people losing their jobs due to the labour unrest in the country.
Yeah, we're noticing two dramatic trends in the labour market. The first is that the rate of retrenchments is the highest that it's been since the 2009 recession. And at the same time, people are clinging to their jobs, if they have them, in ways we haven't seen for the last 5 years. So the labour market is definitely in crisis. The big contributors to the decline in permanent employment were mining and manufacturing and the financial services sector. But really the weakness has been across the board. The only positive event last month was the informal sector, which continues to create, if you want to call them, jobs.